Hi, I'm Allie. Join me as I create a nice wire cross that's embellished with some crystals, some metal, some gemstones, up to you. You'll need 2 gauges of wire for this and a couple tools, so make sure to check out the description below the video, and you can get links there to all the materials that are used in this design. Gather everything up and let's get started. So to get started, you want a couple pieces of pliers. And the pliers that you're going to be using are a round nose plier, a wire cutter, and a chain nose or needle nose plier. We're going to be making this simple, sweet little cross with some 4mm beads that sit in the middle. However, this technique can be done wrapping around larger items. I find it easy to hold with the round nose pliers, and they're the perfect size for a 4mm bead, so we're going to start there. We're going to be using 18 gauge Potomax wire as well as 24 gauge Potomax wire to put in the crystals or the metal beads here and create that nice cross look. You can also keep it open. That's completely up to you when you're using it. I would recommend, again, starting with the 18 gauge wire. You can do it in a thinner wire, but you want to make sure as you're working with it, as you're wearing it, that the cross is going to be stable and not come apart. That's where I would recommend the 18. If you want to use 16 gauge wire, you can do the same thing and you will still get the 4mm interior. Keep in mind, you can always go smaller on your round nose plier. If you have a 3mm, you want to make something a little bit more dainty, go ahead and grab a marker. You can see kind of little marks that I have on there, and you can make your cross smaller. So to begin, you can do this right off the spool, or you can cut yourself a 10-inch piece of wire. That's going to be more than you need, but it's nice to hold on to. So the first thing I'm going to do is let my wire sit with a 1/2 inch above my round nose plier, and I'm holding on to the wire with the round nose. We're going to start at the top, go down to the middle, to the left, to the right, back to the middle, and then down further. So to do so, holding again about a 1/2 inch down on the wire, I'm going to make a loop with my wire around my round nose pliers. So you can see I got started, but I couldn't fully make that loop. I want that loop to be full. So it's actually going to be a loop and a half when you're looking at it. Each loop will be a loop and a half to close up the loop as you're working with it. So the first one here is a loop and a half. Right there, you can see that doubled. The last one there is a loop and a half. You can see it doubled on one side. We're going to make sure that our loop is the size of that biggest part of our round nose pliers. If you're using the Bead Tech pliers here, it's generally speaking, they're going to be about the same size. But after you make your first loop, just drop your 4mm bead in and make sure that it does fit on the interior. Once you have the wire doubled over, you want to stop that doubled over exactly halfway. So if I would draw a line, it's going to be halfway from the top to the bottom that it's doubled over. We're going to make another loop that sits in a figure 8 right below it. So from here, you're going to put your round nose pliers back so you can see both jaws there sticking straight up. Put your loop so that it's at the top and the wire is coming out the middle. We're going to create another loop here going down opposite. So if you kind of draw in your mind that figure 8, we're going to go to the opposite. The loop wire was coming out the left. We're going to swing over to the right, staying at the bottom side of those round nose pliers. Now I have to stop because I can't go any further or it's going to wrap around the other jaw. You're going to simply slide it up and out, trying not to pull open your jaws too fast or that can affect the size of the loop. Put it back on so that that loop is now at the top jaw, and you're going to pull that wire over the top. And once again, I'm rounding it out. You can see I'm pulling the wire down till I get a 1/2 coil. So I have a 1/2 coil on the right side of the top loop, and I have a 1/2 coil basically on the left side. From here, we're going to build out the sides. If you just want to do 3 drops, say you want to do a mother's bracelet, you'll be able to continue on making those figure 8s and continue on making the base. Again, we're going to build out now on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, another loop. So just like we did with the top to create the second one, I'm going to put my loop back on my round nose pliers to where it stops. Instead of having it straight up and down here, I'm going to put it to the side because I want the loop to sit to the left side of the one I just created. See how the wire is coiled around and coming out the top right? I'm going to bring the wire down and to the bottom and wrap around. Once again, it's stuck there on the side. I'm going to slowly take it off my pliers, not opening too fast. Put it back in so it's just that one single loop, and we're going to continue to make the loop. Where I want to stop is where that loop started on the secondary loop there. So you're starting it right at that stop. That's going to get me the left side of my cross. If you see that it's sitting down a little bit, just take your fingers, turn that a little bit before you get too far. You want to kind of take inventory at each step and make sure your loops are still looking nice. So from here, the wire is coming out the middle of the two loops from the interior, from the center. And obviously we're going to do 3 because we want to go across for the cross. We're going to put our round nose pliers back in till it stops right at the bottom. And I'm going to take the wire a half a turn and go to the opposite side of my center loop. So see how I just have it coiled over the bottom there and the opposite side. Now you can see we're at the same starting spot where we did the loop on the left, and we're going to do the loop on the right. So I'm going to put this back in here. So the wire's coming out the middle always when you have to do your next loop. And we're going to start to turn and get that loop started. That's going to go to the right side. See how I have to stop there? You're always going to stop, reposition your pliers, and continue to complete the loop. Now, the side loops are going to be an instance where you only really have one complete loop of wire on each because we want to bring the wire back to the middle. The nicer you get your wire working, the nicer your project happens to be. From here, we're going to go back to that center loop, pushing it all the way down, and we're going to take that wire from the top there, still maintaining always that figure 8 look, wrap around the top till it stops there. Take that off, top jaw to bottom jaw, put it back in here. Oops. So where it stops, so I'm going in the top and the bottom here. So that's the top jaw, that's the bottom jaw, top loop, bottom loop. And we're just going to continue over till it touches and kisses the loop that you just made. So the center, you're going to end up seeing 3 little coils. One from the first rotation, one from the second when we bring back over from the left side, and one from the right when we bring back over to the right side. You want to make sure that all those loops, see how I'm putting it back in the round nose pliers and making sure that loop's there? I'm going to make sure that all of those loops stay opened up and they get stacked one on top of each other nicely because you want room for your 4mm bead to sit in the interior. After you have that loop completed, you're going to stick back in your loop. Pretend that your loop is not even there on the sides and you're just continuing again, making your next figure 8, taking your wire around till it stops, opening up your jaws a little bit, pulling them down, taking my wire loop the whole way around, and see how I'm repositioning it constantly, making sure again that it's back to that 4mm opening. I'm kind of pushing that down. And then as you finish up that 3rd loop straight down, it's time to make the 4th. So again, if you're continuing on, you're doing the wire in the opposite direction. When you stop, you say, oh man, I can't continue my loop. Easy to look at, and take your loop and put it to the top. Complete that whole half a turn here to make it so that it's complete. And then because we're using the 18 gauge wire, we're just going to take our wire cutter when it's nice and even, pull that to the side, cut off that extra wire, and then to bend it into shape, put it back in your round nose pliers and just kind of gently push it along the side to round it out so you can't feel it at either end. That's how you're going to do your cross. From here at the top, I'm just going to go back in and round it out a little bit more. Take my loop here, and you can make your loop whatever size you want it to be. So I have it nice and small here. What I'm going to do is grab my needle nose pliers actually, and I am going to bend this straight up and then also straight back. I'm going to create a bail out of this that it can go on a chain or on a necklace, holding and rounding it out so that loop faces the opposite direction. That's how you're going to get your nice cross. You can keep it like this, or you can follow through, and we're going to embellish the cross by putting in some 4mm beads and holding them together with a thinner 24 gauge wire. So now it's time to have fun embellishing our crosses. We're going to do so with 24 gauge wire and again our 4mm bead, whether or not you're doing crystal, metal beads, gemstones, kind of up to you. A nice idea is actually to do one that's mixed and birthstones as well, or some pearls you can even do. We have 24 gauge wire, about 6 inches, and I'm bringing the short piece of wire about a half to a quarter of an inch through the first loop from the back toward the front. I'm going to take the wire, just kind of hold it down to the side, and we're going to wrap it once around the exterior of that first loop. So it's doubled over there and the wire goes straight across and tucks towards the back. From here, you're going to add your first bead onto your wire. Let it drop down into that loop that you've created. Move that stop bead or that starter wire a little bit. Go over the top of the loop. We're going to stay consistent throughout the project. And then you're bringing the wire through the loop on the other side. This side will only have one loop, so it won't be doubled over at all. We're going to do 2 wraps. So I wrapped around once, but I'm going to have that doubled over. So I'm going to cut kind of short here. Get rid of that piece of wire. Take my needle nose pliers and tuck that to the back and around the wire so it just ends to the back. Likewise, flipping it over, that starter piece, which was just a piece to hold on to, you can shorten it if you're a better wire worker or more experienced. Go ahead and take your wire cutters flat side down, cut down that extra little wire, and then take your needle nose pliers and pinch that wire down along the exterior. That's going to be your first bead loop that's in there. I'm going to go ahead and do the 3rd and the 4th since it's done the exact same way. And then I'll show you how we're going to loop across the middle and do the middle 3. So I've done the top and the 2 bottom pieces, independent units, and now I'm getting to the middle. I've started at the same where I have my 4mm bead in the middle, coming out the top, wrapping around once. As I go to the interior here, instead of going around just that single loop, I'm going to the center. I'm pulling that wire through, and I'm going to wrap the whole way around the 2 loops that are there at the center, through loop number 1. You can grab with your needle nose pliers if you need to, and just give a nice little tight pull. See how the wire is a little bit loose there? I'm going to go in with those needle nose pliers again. If it happens to break, don't worry. I'm just pulling it tight. What that's going to do is establish that middle 3 loops a little bit more. Put on your next bead. You're going to go once again through that 3rd loop, looping around, back through the 3 loops on the interior here. So you can see I'm doing this with a small piece of wire. And why am I using 24? Because it will keep its shape with those 2 loops on the side versus like a 26 or a 28 that may come apart. I'm going to grab this here, and I'm trying to use the rest of my wire here. See how I'm grabbing and pulling it across the top, getting that same established look, putting on another bead, dropping that into my far right loop, and then taking my needle nose pliers and just bringing it through the back. And again, you can do a longer piece of wire if you want to. I like the shorter pieces to manipulate them a little bit because there's less to pull through the design. Back here in the design then, on loop number 1, I'm going to bend that wire to the back, cut off the extra wire where it starts to look like it touches a bead, grab my needle nose pliers, and I'll check after I'm done with this that all those little edges are down. Because anytime you're done with wire working and you have little edges that stick up, that the wires across from each other, you always want to make sure when you hold it that you know for a fact it's not going to rub on clothing, or that you're not going to have any issues where it catches onto a sweater or anything like that. So this is the really, really simple way, whether or not you want to leave it open, close it up with 4mm, and even make it smaller or bigger. You have that nice bail at the top that you can create and slip it right on a chain to get that nice beaded wire cross look. Thanks so much for watching and hopefully expanding your wire working skills while making a fun embellished cross. Remember, you can do this with a lot of different designs, not just the cross shape. So have fun, play around with your round nose pliers and some 18 gauge wire and go to town. As always, if you do need any supplies, go ahead and look below the video in the description to shop with us online to get links there. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for our next inspirational video.